Michigan will be one to watch this November for several reasons. During Tuesday night's Democratic primary, more than 100,000 Michiganders sent a message to President Biden, casting an uncommitted vote in protest of his administration's handling of Israel's war on Gaza. A reminder, in 2020, Biden won Michigan by fewer than 150,000 votes. While he still won Tuesday night's primary, the uncommitted movement does not stop with Michigan and will not until Biden shows that he hears the message being sent. As Joe Nichols puts it in The Nation, the message was blunt. Biden's presidency could hang in the balance if he does not pay attention to voters he needs in November. Joining me now to discuss this is Academy Award-winning filmmaker Michael Moore. He is also part of the group Listen to Michigan, which helped organize the uncommitted push. Michael, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for making time for us. Earlier this week, you said what Biden is participating in is something that is killing civilians and children. More than 30,000 Palestinians have now been killed in this ongoing war. At this point, does the president stand a chance at winning back some of those or any of those uncommitted voters? Would calling for a ceasefire at this moment be enough?
No, but it would go a long way. I can't speak for everybody who voted, obviously. We organized this campaign, Listen to Michigan, Mr. President, please. We organized this in less than 3 weeks. So, I mean, this was the most amazing thing to have happened, to have over 100,000 Michiganders, Democrats. I would say the majority, vast majority of whom voted for Biden in 2020, to come out and vote uncommitted, to send that message to the president that not only must there be a ceasefire now, but that we must stop, as Senator Sanders said earlier today, we must stop sending, we shouldn't send another nickel, is what he said, in bombs, guns, planes, bullets to Israel until they stop this madness. And I think that that is how people felt going to the polls on Tuesday, that we needed to send a strong message. Now, for people listening to this to think, oh, why are we throwing the election to Trump? I don't know. One thing I think I feel safe saying is that those who voted uncommitted on Tuesday are not going to vote for Trump. My fear, and the reason why those of us started this campaign, is to basically save Biden from himself, because of what he's done to support this massacre, to fund it, to be the bank for Israel in the slaughter of these people, that he is essentially guaranteeing that thousands and thousands of Americans are going to stay home and not vote on election day because they're not going to vote for Trump. But this is how Trump could win, because that 150,000 he won by in 2020, Hillary lost Michigan by just 11,000 votes. Yeah. That's 2 votes on average, 2 votes per precinct in Michigan. That's it. That's how close this could be. And to have 100,000 plus come out on Tuesday and say, you know what, our conscience will not allow us to support this. Right. And if people say, well, so does your conscience allow you to let Trump win? No. What it means actually to me personally is that now I've got to double and quadruple my efforts to make sure Trump loses, because Biden is working against me. Biden is working against the Democrats. The Democrats in Michigan, first of all, 75% of the people in Michigan, according to the last poll I saw, want the ceasefire and want this massacre to stop. That's Republicans and Democrats. So the fact that Joe Biden isn't listening to the people is a sad thing. It's going to hurt him if he doesn't change now. And going on TV a couple days before the primary with Seth Meyers, poor Seth, stuck with the ice cream cone there with Biden. And, when Biden promised that there would be a ceasefire by this Monday. Right. From your reporting here on MSNBC, that doesn't sound like that's going to happen. And so, what do we who don't want Trump back in there do at this point? Because, again, I can't speak on behalf of the Arab and Muslim Americans in Michigan who voted, but I've heard from enough of them, and I've heard from enough young people of all ethnicities and races and genders. Young people hate war, mainly because they're the ones sent to war to die in those wars.
Can I ask you about that real quick, though? Can I ask you, you bring up a really important point that I want to ask you about, because how broad is this coalition? There is this perception, certainly some in the mainstream media are trying to portray this as an Arab American thing or a Muslim American thing, saying, hey, the guy on the other side wants to deport you. You're a part of this. You tell us, how broad is this coalition that is behind this uncommitted vote? Who is it?
Listen, I'm going to tell tales out of school here. Those of us who were involved in or helping organize and promote this on Tuesday, the Listen to Michigan campaign, we were hoping to get maybe 10 to 15,000 votes. That was it. A few people, the optimists, thought maybe 30,000. The fact that it was over 100,000 means it was a broad. It wasn't just the 9,000 people in Dearborn or the other Arab cities in Michigan, where we have an Arab American mayor and an Arab American city council. Hamtramck, Michigan. No, this was, of course, yes, it was Muslims and it was Arab Americans, but it was also vast numbers of young people who just said, "That's it. I'm out. I'm not going to vote for Trump, but I'm out of this. If this guy is going to continue the war, if he's going to continue to embrace Netanyahu, I will not participate in this." And so you had young people, you had progressives, you had all kinds of Democrats. As I said, the vast majority of Democrats in all the polls are against Biden funding and arming this war. So why wouldn't Biden listen to this? He wouldn't even acknowledge it when he won the primary, and then in thanking the people of Michigan, just ignored the 100,000 people. If, as Michelle Goldberg said in the New York Times last Friday, if he loses Michigan, he loses the election. Why would you risk that, President Biden? Why? Why are you? This is when you need to be a politician. It's what you should do is the moral thing, which is stop the carpet bombing, stop the slaughter, make sure aid comes in. Don't be dropping aid with parachutes like it was some kind of Looney Tunes cartoon. You know, you've got 2 million people starving to death, and you're dropping a few hundred parachutes. Is that a joke? Is that like the ice cream announcing we're going to have a ceasefire by Monday? This is not funny. This is not a joke. And the young people of Michigan, the people of color in Michigan, Michigan, we have 13, 14 black cities, majority black cities: Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, Benton Harbor, Pontiac. These are African-American cities. They don't support this. But they supported Biden. I support Biden. We voted for Biden. We want to vote for him again. But a lot of people, and this is what I was saying about our friends in the Detroit area who are Palestinian, who have family members who have died in these last almost 5 months. Family members that have been killed by in Dearborn, in Detroit, their tax dollars. They helped to fund the slaughter of their grandparents, their cousins, their nieces, their nephews. And I'm just asking anybody who's watching this right now, who's not Arab, not Muslim, if you discovered that the United States, your country, funded and carried out through the production of these arms that are given to Israel, carried out the slaughter of your grandparents, tell me what you would do. Tell me, how would you vote? Or would you maybe not vote at all and just sit it out because you're so upset, so disgusted with the murder of innocent civilians, 2/3 of whom are children and women and elderly? These are real people, Detroiters, who have lost, hundreds of people who have lost or have wounded family members, or who are starving to death right now in Gaza. Just asking you, fellow white people, what would you do? What would you do? And why is there an open air prison called Gaza for 15 years? When people are in prison, it's because they've committed a crime. Can somebody right now tell me what the crime is that the Palestinian people, as a group of people, have committed? What is the crime? Because according to my knowledge of history, the enemies of Israel who have been persecuted, the Israelis, the Jewish people of this world have been persecuted for 5,000 years. But for the last 2,000 years, most of the persecution has come from white, European-centric Christians. That's been your enemy. No Palestinian helped to build Auschwitz. No Palestinian stood on the docks of New York City when boatloads of Jewish refugees trying to escape the Holocaust came here to be protected by this country and were turned away at the docks in New York and sent back to Germany to die. No Palestinian did that. No Palestinian ran the Spanish Inquisition. Your enemy is not the Palestinian people. It is white, Christian, European people who have been slaughtering Jews for the last 2,000 years. And let's just call it for what it is. But why are they in an open-air prison? Why are 2 million of them in an open-air prison? And I'm sorry to go on so long.
You bring up so many important points, and I know we can talk about this for hours, but I did just want to kind of get your final thought about this because it is kind of becoming such an important issue in the primaries. Do you think Joe Biden is gambling American democracy, given the fact that the alternative is a guy who says he's going to be a dictator, is a guy who says he's going to be an authoritarian on day one? Do you think Donald Trump is the threat that he is, and Joe Biden is gambling by aligning himself closely with Netanyahu at the risk of American democracy?
Absolutely. And gambling by aligning himself with an authoritarian in Tel Aviv, somebody who is facing a number of felonious charges, who was supposed to stand trial this past fall, and that all got shoved aside because now there's a war. And so we can't put our prime minister on trial. Joe Biden, and I plead with him, do not put Trump back in the White House. I am not going to be able to go on enough shows on TV between now and the election to convince literally millions of young people that you got to vote because Trump's a bad guy. Well, do you know any young people? Those of you watching me right now, you should talk to them. You should see what they think about this. And it should frighten you because, and there's nothing you're going to do to convince your son or daughter or niece or nephew to do the right thing. Many of us will do that. We will be out there. We will triple our efforts to help make sure Trump doesn't come back in the White House. But why do we have to do this? Why can't Biden just stop it right now? Call for the ceasefire. No more money for armaments to Israel. And insist that Israel go to its core. You are the religion that has always stood for something, that stood for civil rights, that stood for everything, and it's like
I hear you. I know. I sense the frustration in your voice, Michael. Let's hope the president is watching, or certainly somebody around him is watching this and can get that message to him. It's always a pleasure. Filmmaker and host of The Rumble with Michael Moore. Michael Moore, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.